Good evening and welcome to Reach Lawyer Source. Reach Lawyer Source is a program of Reach Lawyer to discuss, debate, support issues and challenges faced by women at home, at workplace, and in the society. Untangled, Setting Her Free is a series of talks on the issues around domestic violence. Today's topic, to dig one's heels in. Welcome to Reach Lawyer Source. I would now like to hand over the session to our moderator, Ms. Gargikar. Gargi, over to you.
Journey of a woman in domestic violence from being a victim to survivor to beyond is long, many a time arduous, but a journey indeed. There are many who have successfully undertaken such a journey. Many have made a difference not only for themselves but have inspired many more. Many of these stories of great success need to be told, such journey to be narrated. To make a new beginning, women in domestic violence, those who are friends and concerned should know and enthuse others to know. Yes, there is a need to dig one's heels in, says Muthamma Devaya. Muthamma B. Devaya is an activist for disability rights, inactive at this point, and is passionate about the philosophy of inclusion, diversity, and equal opportunity. She began her career in the development sector with Raksha, Society for the Care of Children with Multiple Disabilities in Kochi. She then moved to India Center for Human Rights and Law, Mumbai, Human Rights Law Network, Kochi and Bangalore. She quit the development sector after short stints at the National Center for Promotion of Employment for Disabled People and Arunim, New Delhi. Owing to ill health, she underwent a renal transplant and is proud to announce that her kidney has a PhD and is far more qualified than her. Currently a partner at Funky Rainbow, the traveling children's bookshop. She loves children's books and has vowed to never rest till there is one in every child's hand every day. I may now like to call upon Vaya ma'am to come and speak.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
Okay, hi everybody. Good evening. I just want to say it's such an honor to be a part of this panel that has been, talking through these 5 days that I have been watching you guys. I must say that each speaker has, plucked at my heartstrings. I mean, not just, pulled at it, it literally plucked at my heartstrings because whether it was, Ann Thomas or it was BT or Dr. Sarasu or Sheila Ramaswamy. And what happened was, I actually began to get very anxious. I just didn't know whether I was up to it because a lot of the pain of what I went through came back. I think the only locus standi that I have being here, thanks to BT, is just the fact that I have experienced all that we are going to talk about and what was spoken about to a large extent. Like I said, each speaker had something or the other, what they spoke about, that sort of took me back in time. But of course, I am a survivor. I don't think I am a victim ever. The moment I get into victim mode, I always say this to myself, that it's only me and my life and who I am that has to come out. And I have to come out stronger. So, I don't mean to sound kind of boastful, but that's what kept me going right through. I would like to start, if I go back, there's a lot that sort of, when Dr. Sheila was talking yesterday about children, their pride, their dignity, how they see themselves, how they perceive the world. What came back to me was all the trauma that I had undergone. Mine has been a very, very liberal and a very privileged upbringing. I come from, be that as it may, I did see violence at home, and I have been subjected to abuse, both physical and sexual, by the time I was 4. So years 4 to 14 for me were most difficult, and thereafter too, and I'll come to that. Yesterday, something happened at home, and I, it was thanks to my younger daughter, who, when she saw me arguing with my husband, she immediately froze, and I realized that she was going to have a panic attack. And I have noticed this about her for quite some time, and I had to tell her, like, will you just stop it? I love my husband, your father, far more than life itself. And please, please don't stunt, what we have our arguments. We are adults, we argue on various things. And she laughed. But she says, but Mama, I do get worried. She is somebody who's actually gone and hidden in the bedroom when there was a fight. I mean, she's locked herself up. And these are things that I have seen in myself. I have done these things. I have hidden under the bed. I have tried to, sort of cup my ears, not to hear the fights. I have tried to sort of stay away from home for a very long time. I have looked for relationships that would keep me, whether it was friends or boyfriends or whoever. I have looked for that just because I felt that that was the answer to me escaping everything at home. So when Sheila was talking yesterday, I mean, I can't tell you where I went and from where I have come back. The fact that, when one got beaten up, one was told that it was one's fault. And I became a mother who began to hit her children because that's what I thought was the best way to discipline them. I came out well, I was fine, so why not? Till they turned around and said, this is not on. And I was like, the one thing which I remembered most, it was not so much the beating or the sexual abuse, but I remembered what sort of, stunted me and made me very scared was one day when I was going to school, my mother, in her anger with my dad, told me that when I came back, I would find her dead or hanging. You can imagine what happened to me, or, when I was in school that day. I still remember that it was, I think, a math class on, and I was unable to complete my notes. And for days thereafter, I did not complete my notes, and I was also thrown out of class for that. But that's how my education, I felt, was stunted. Many a time I feel that I wasn't able to concentrate in class after that was because of this, what I was told, and I didn't know what was waiting for me at home. I think I did my academics only on the sheer strength of what I feel was my inherent, to use the word would be a little boastful, but it is not. I meant my inherent intelligence quotient. I just feel that. And that was the one which saved me when it came to academics, especially in our country. As I said, I was constantly looking for companionship. I was an only child. And at home, the companion I had was my dog, who I would curl up to till I was about 7. And then he died. And I didn't have anybody thereafter. So it was a lonely journey. And I always, whenever friends came home, I would stop them from leaving. If I went out, I would stay out till I think the aunt or the uncle threw me out and said, go back, these kids have to do their homework. Now you go and do your homework. So I kept getting in and out of relationships. I made friends where sometimes they stabbed me, girls and boys, where they, were nasty, some were good, some I still keep in touch with till today. But I made some very bad decisions when it came to relationships or something which I thought was for life. And I was just used and used and used and abused. I was engaged to be married to a very, very fine gentleman and came from the services himself. I was from the services background, so it was a good match. But eventually, I also felt that this much I knew was that I wouldn't be able to carry on with that kind of patriarchy. And so I left. I broke the engagement. And then on the rebound, got involved with somebody else who I thought, matched me. The violence at home was terrible. I kept making excuses. I never knew that I was getting slowly into that victim format. Things came to a head when I was chosen, and I have been in theater for a very long time. In fact, I just got off my theater meeting and I've come into this. I just got back to it after almost, I would say, 93, and now to 2021 is when I got back to it. That was what, because I got a role, he kept on and on and on and on about everything about that role. Yeah. Is there a question?
Sorry, ma'am. I think they have accidentally unmuted themselves.
Okay. Okay. No worries. So for me, it was, I kept getting abused because I was doing that particular role. I was, there was, you can't do intimate scenes, but okay, there was one where somebody who actually founded my theater group, he was playing the part of my husband, and he had to lift me up, and he'd come back. The script showed that he had to lift me up. So just that was something that would trigger a fight at home every single time. I stuck to it because I really, really wanted to work with the director. I wanted to work with my team. It was a very, very important play, and it was very prestigious too, because we were invited by the American Embassy to perform, and this lady was a faculty, and she was also a director at the Pomona University, which has a fantastic theater program. I gave that up just after that play. I said, okay, let's keep the peace at home. If there is a problem, I do not want to get there. And I stopped. I lost out on a lot of learning. And as a creative person, as an actor, I lost out a lot. Things came to a head when I saw that he began stealing. I don't know, I think he was on drugs or whatever. I used to keep money in pouches. I used to work with an NGO, didn't earn much. He was kind of struggling or whatever. So I said, okay, don't worry, I'll take care of the house and everything. He started stealing money for what I had kept aside for food and other expenses. And when I would ask, it would be like, it's your fault, you're not careful, you're like this, you're like that. And in a whole lot of, you're a liar, you yourself are a thief. I don't know who's giving you the money. How are you going to, this, that, and the other, and all sorts of things. Even tried to sell me once. I kept quiet till one night he came drunk, and a massive fight, he came at me with knives. I, being me and being trained by my father, I ran out of the house and walked from my marital home to my parents' home. Luckily, they were in the same city. I walked at about 2 a.m. in the morning, and I reached home with a bleeding nose and mouth. My parents didn't ask me a single question. And when I told my father that this is what happened, he said, I did not raise you to get you back in a body bag. So that sort of got me thinking, and I decided I would stay home. But of course, I was cajoled, and I went back. And one day when things came to a head, and I was at my parents' home, they had gone out, they had locked me up. He came in and he broke the windows and everything, got in and almost tried to strangle me. I threw him out, locked the door, and I called the police. The number for the police, I still remember, I think it's 100. I called the number, and I was said that, okay, this is your location, call this number. I called that number. They asked me to call another number, which will fall in my jurisdiction. If it wasn't me, if it was somebody else who did not have the kind of, I learned to survive. My father gave me a few skills. She would have been dead by the time the police came. When they came, they asked me a few questions and they were like, okay, she's just hyperventilating. Told me to come to the police station the next day and file a report. I went, I did it by myself. And let me tell you here that I am the daughter of a gazetted officer. And yet my father said, do it yourself. And I said, okay, I will. And I'll show you that I can do it myself. And I did it. But when I came back, my father asked me, did you get a signed copy of the FIR that you filed? I said, no. They just gave me this, they made me write, and there was a carbon copy. I just got that. He said, well, that doesn't have a signature, or the seal of the police, so it really does not matter. I said, oh, okay, should I go back now or not? I started thinking about it. By then, luckily again, I got support from friends and family, and I went and met a lawyer who used to work in family law. And she told me that, okay, I will take your case. And in the midst of all this, I get called at about 6 in the evening. At 6 in the evening, mark you, this was way back in 93, into the police station, saying that the circle inspector or the guy who was in charge wants to meet me. So I said, fine. And I go there, and here they call the guy who was my husband too. He was there as well, and he was trying to make eye contact, try and talk to me. While waiting there, going through that, they actually got somebody. I saw somebody coming in handcuffs, and he had, he was running the roads naked. So they caught him, and they brought him to the police station while I was there. I remember speaking to the officer in charge, and he was like, among other things, he did say that,
Ma'am, please continue.
So he was like, started talking, trying to play counselor, and told me that I'm a policeman, and my wife works with the state electricity board. She's an engineer. There are times when I rough her around, but that doesn't mean that she's going to ask for a divorce. What are you making such a big bloody fuss about? Why don't you just get back together, and why don't you just put this to a close? It took me all my strength not to get up and just slap him right then and there. But for me, it was a very good lesson in what women go through. Here I thought I had my rights right in place. I knew everything. My father was a retired officer from the services. I had everything behind me, but here was a man who actually showed me the ugly face of patriarchy in the state of Kerala, where I never expected it to be. So, it was difficult. I managed to get my divorce and then moved on with my life. I put myself in my work. Luckily, I met Javed Abadi, who actually a few years ago left us. Yesterday was his anniversary. I really realized how much work was there to be done in the field of disability, and how persons with disability, especially women with disability, were being ignored by the mainstream movements. So it was good in a way because I could throw myself into my work. Just what happened was, in all this, I met my current husband, and we decided to get married. The only thing that stands out, everything is wonderful now, but the one thing that stands out for me, and again, when you make your choices, you decide that you are not going to be a victim. I told my father that, he had passed on by the time I got married, of course, the third time. But when I told my father that, I'm so sorry, I'm like this, but I'm bringing such disrepute to the family. The one thing he said that, who do you think you are? You think you're so big that you're going to bring disrepute to the family? The family name and the family are much bigger than you are. You need to learn to live your life. You need to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and make a name for yourself and add that to the family name. That is what you should be doing. So yeah, I mean, having heard that, it was like literally, I got myself pulled up. And I remember when I went to invite, my father had passed on, and I went to invite a friend of his, a very dear friend of his. This uncle sort of looks at the invitation and says, okay, so you finally, are you sure this is the one you want to stay married to? And I was like, why? What are you saying? So he says, no, for you, it's like how men put on shirts. For you, it's like you move from one relationship to the other. I felt sorry for my mother who had to hear that. But I really wish that I could have gotten up and said that I will change as many freaking shirts as possible till I find the right fit. But why the hell are you losing your shirt on this? So, I mean, I'm just saying these are the things that come in, and people are going to say all sorts of stuff. So when I got into the disability movement, I met many women with disabilities who were in, some of them had gotten into very bad marriages, had left. Some of them had some very good times. But, the thing about them being disabled women was something that, they kept telling me stories about, and also about this growing up thing. I remember Dr. Meenu Bambani telling me much earlier that when she went to Chicago was when she truly went to do her doctorate studies, that she truly felt like a woman. Because she said she went out clubbing with friends. It was all accessible, and she was actually asked to dance by a guy. He invited her to dance. She says in India, they'll first look at my braces and only then will they look at my face. Well, I wanted to say that, well, they first look at my breasts and then they look at my face. So anyway, that's with regard to women with disabilities, again, in kind of situations that they are, and the parents. I'm talking about, when I say women with disabilities, I also look at mothers who have children with disabilities. Many a case, they're just deserted by their husbands. And when they go seeking justice, like even today, I do not feel that I have got justice, but I've made my peace with it. But I do not want to make peace with anybody else, anybody else making peace with it. So when they used to get deserted, I know that society and everybody else would say, oh, but how can you blame the guy? You've got a disabled child. This is what a woman who has given birth to a child with disability. There are many good stories, but I'm just sort of bringing out, what do we do when you find people who are going through this? How do we counter this? I just have one book that right now I also work. I mean, my work now has brought me to children's books. I curate and consult about it. I was just showing BT this book written by a very dear friend, Asha Nehemiah, and probably the only book that exists about domestic violence. And if any one of you, and I think that BT and I have been discussing about the Reach Lawyer reading program. So I said, look, I can't think of anything for adults, but I could certainly think of stuff for children. So there is this book, Behind the Lie by Asha Nehemiah. I hope it's coming out right and you can read it. It might be in reverse over here. But this actually talks about two children whose mother is being beaten up. And the imagery is so beautiful, so subtle. If you can see, there is this sofa set in most homes, and you can see the belt over there. That's it. And a fantastic job done by the illustrator, Andri Chakraborty. We have used this in schools. We have given this to many parents, to libraries, and they have been using it to ensure that children will understand what domestic violence is all about and how to spot it and where to get help. The other thing which I want to talk about is when people have any major illnesses, like in October 2013, I was diagnosed with renal failure. What that meant was that both my kidneys had failed, that I had autoimmune disease, and because of which it had attacked my kidneys and they were no longer functioning. They were barely at 5%. So I had to undergo dialysis and eventually went on to have a transplant. Again, there was a lot of privilege there, though, despite the fact that one had to keep going and standing in the police station like a criminal. Eventually, I mean, there was grace and, like I said, privilege, because I had a friend in BT Venkatesh who was at that time the public prosecutor in Karnataka. And he told the hospital committee that if something happens, I am the one who's going to sue you. And I stand by this girl and her donor, who is a very dear friend, Sampurna, who BT also knows, and she's been with Reach Lawyer for quite some time. So Dr. Sampurna Behura gave me her kidney, and that's why I say it's far more qualified than I am. But coming back to what happens to women who have these major illnesses, I met at least 3 during dialysis who were dependent on their parents or who had nothing, no money, no nothing, because their partner had deserted them. And there was one particular girl, I remember, she had a 10-year-old son. Her mother would come with her son late night, because I took the late night shift. And that was a shift mainly, for me, it was convenience. That was mainly for the hospital doing their CSR. So they would give people who couldn't afford it the late night shift. So I really do not know how to sort of conclude this, but these are things that which kind of have defined me in a way. Those that have kind of, kept me going, made me say that, okay, if this is one thing, then I shall move on to the next, and take baby steps and move forward. I just want to show a smattering of books on various issues in the country that have come out. And I must say that Indian authors and Indian illustrators have really brought, they really don't shy away from bringing issues to children. Like I said, Asha Nehemiah spoke about domestic violence in her book, Behind the Lie. There is Choti by Anam Fatima and illustrated by Grace Stroke. It's a slice of life really about a little girl with Down syndrome and her sister, and how even today children are actually, what this brought out for me was certain memories where, children, or even you must have heard about the Iravadi incident where, in the mental asylum, when the fire broke out, there were still inmates who were chained to their beds. So there are even today children who are chained at home because they are children with disabilities. And you can imagine what happens when that happens for a child or for a girl child, and when she hits puberty. That reminds me of a case that came through from the Chandigarh High Court or the Punjab and Haryana High Court, where there was this girl who was raped. She was in a children's home and she was raped by the watchman. She was having, she was not having Down syndrome, but she was intellectually challenged and she wanted to keep the baby. The society around her, the people around her decided that she needs to abort. So the question before the court was, under the National Trust Act also, she had reprieve, but the question before the court was, should she be allowed to keep the baby? So one was, what was the term she was in? What was her, the term of her pregnancy? And as a person or a woman with disability, does she, whether it was intellectual or physical, does she have the right to become a parent? So this is something that, if you're law students here, you should, this is something you should look back on. I think it came up to the Supreme Court as well. And the Supreme Court decided in favor of the girl who wanted to keep her baby. Then there are some lovely things on when you talk about children having issues, which Sheila was talking about. There is this book called Midnight Years about problems that, that teenagers face. And there's a lot of times they take their own lives or they think they're not worth it. I was one such teenager who nobody will believe, but I always thought that I was not worth it. And I grew up, I mean, even for me, even today, it takes me a long time. You can ask BT, he literally had to bully me into talking to all of you. Though I have done it somewhere along the line, I also get very worried when people raise their voices. I'm still not very comfortable. I cannot stand an argument. So, these are things that have been in many a book, it has been spoken about. I'd like to talk about two books here. One is, again, in this book, It Has No Name. You talk about the author Payal Dhar has, again, the character comes from the LGBTQAI community. You have a book called Ubuntu, which is really not for children, but for young adults, yes, where author Murali has spoken about his experiences in philanthropy and in working with children and orphans who had AIDS or who had lost their parents to HIV. I cannot stop talking enough about the book, but recently there was this whole controversy. I'm sure it's still raging on about the hijab versus the the janayu versus the pagri. I just want everybody to know there's a lovely, lovely book called Postbox Kashmir, where it is a conversation between one girl who is in Kashmir and a girl in Delhi, Dua and Saumya. I think we should get our children to just start talking to each other. We should start talking to each other rather than, and try and understand without losing our tempers. So, like, for example, Saumya does ask Dua, who is in Kashmir, that how can you just pelt stones at the Indian Army? How can you do things like that? How can girls do something? You will be surprised with Dua's answer. So I just feel that the more we read, the more books that are there in the hands of children, books that matter, that is, the better society we will have, and the more understanding that children will have about what awaits them in this world. I have another one called Kidney Warriors about, it's full of instances about caregiving and stuff for people who have, and also patients who have either they're still going through the disease or they have had their transplant, and their whole journey is there about that here. And I would like to end this by saying that this is who I always was and I always will be, the YY girl. It's written by Mahashweta Devi, and there is a YY girl in all of us. Thank you for your time. Thank you, BT. Thank you, Nitin. Thank you, Reach Lawyer, for having me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You are an inspiration for every one of us. So I would like to start with the questions now. Yeah. So, ma'am, the mainstream media always uses the word victim to define a woman who have suffered abuse at home, intimate relationships. But what is important here is how to turn her sufferings into empowerment. How can a woman be made a survivor from a victim?
Thank you. That's a very good question, Gargi, and something that I have asked myself. I've asked the question, why out there? First, why is a woman who is in a situation which is not conducive to her well-being always, I mean, forever considered a victim? I feel, though, that many a time it is the woman herself. Sometimes I feel they have many questions, and I'm not, in each person is a person in their own right, and they have they have the privilege and the right to be who they are. We can be patronizing when we go across. I mean, we can come across as patronizing, we can come across as somebody who is willing to help. Like, I do remember this case when I was in HRLN, where a girl came up and said that this guy married me. And we said, okay, where are your papers? And she says, no, he took me to a temple, we exchanged garlands. And now he says he's not married to me. And he has a wife already. So we kept telling her, and she just wouldn't. I mean, and this was a whole team of lawyers who was talking to her and saying, and who were working in family law, tried to explain to her that this is a very abusive relationship and that it was, that he would get away scot-free, but she did not accept it. It turned out that literally she was abused very badly, but she couldn't accept the fact that she was being abused. She felt that he still loved her. So I think it just has to come from within for women, and we have to just stand by. It's like how you will see a child getting up, falling down, getting up, and walking, right? I have come to that conclusion that without me wanting to do what I did, I really wouldn't have been here today. That's my answer.
You just told us that you don't identify yourself as a victim. You call yourself a survivor. And I think it was not a one-day change. It took you years to come here. So
yeah, I
this,
would say survivor, because I remember this, like I'm an only child, plus my parents belong, I'm a multicultural child also. My parents are from 2 different states, 2 different religions, belief, non-belief, everything is there. So the only thing my father told me, I remember I was about 3, he sat me on his knee and he said that, look, after our time, you are on your own. Okay, so learn to survive, he said. You have to learn the skills for survival. You are no less than anybody. You have to make yourself and make your life, right? So that was kind of, and I saw a chat, and my friend Kavita is here, who said that it's culturally ingrained. And it's true, because many a time it's very, like I said, like, when I tried to make my own choices, I was asked whether, I was sort of told that it's like a man changing his shirt every other day. So bloody what? If I want to walk out of my marriage today, I will. If I'm not happy or whatever my reasons, nobody can question me on that. Nobody can judge me on that. Go judge yourselves. Go ask yourselves, why are you judging me?
you spoke about how your family played an important role in your life when you suffered from abuse and domestic violence. How can family in general help to prevent and stop domestic violence?
I think for me, it was a mixture, actually. Like I said, my father didn't come to the police station with me. He knew the rules. He knew everything. If he had walked in, that guy would have gotten up and saluted him, right? He was much junior, an officer. But he didn't. He said, do it yourself. So, but the only thing I had that I knew I had was a roof over my head. And I had a job. I had a certain financial independence. Because that was like when I talked even about, being deserted or anything, the girls who went through, say, any trial and tribulation, whether it was health or not, it is very expensive. So when it is important to be financially independent. I was financially independent, and I and because I was working in the development sector, so there's only so much, but beyond that, I had a roof over my head and I had very supportive parents. Even otherwise, I think even if they were not supportive, I think because of financial independence, I would have taken a 1-room barsati or something and stayed there and kept myself safe, So yes, it's very important that they will not say, like especially up north, it is about naak kat jayegi, log kya kahenge, what will the people say? I'm saying, are they going to come and sort of, so you say that it's better for a girl to commit suicide or be burnt by her in-laws than being safe at home just because 4 people are going to say something, then the Indian construct of family is rubbish, according to me. Sorry.
So you have heard while growing up from our parents that marriage is a compromise. These things, like you said, brushed under the carpet are excessive normalization. In such a situation, how do you think one can recognize that there is a problem?
Okay. Marriage should never be a compromise, ever. I mean, yeah, compromise for here, there, it's okay. But major things, if you don't agree upon, it's not worth it. You've got to live your life with the person. So to me, marriage was never a compromise. Like I said, I was engaged to be married to a fantastic gentleman. I mean, he was a thorough officer through and through and a thorough gentleman. But I knew this much, that the excessive patriarchy that he himself inherently had and that of his family would sort of be kind of committing harakiri for me. And I walked out of it. I wouldn't say marriage is a bed of roses, but it is not compromise either. You have to be, it has to be a partner who will intellectually stimulate you, who will kind of agree upon certain things, certain values, that those things should be straight. So that's what I feel. And those are the choices I have made. For people who believe in what you have said, and they believe that, okay, this is marriage is a compromise, this is the thing, this, they're welcome to it. I will not judge them. It's their life and their choice.
So coming to the next question.
Yeah.
Before that, I would like to say that people who are undergoing domestic violence and problems like these can reach us on askreachlawyer@gmail.com and share us the experience, or if you have any question or you need some legal advice from your side, you may reach us at askreachlawyers@gmail.com. Coming to the next question. I'm done. Women without exposure get influenced by content posted on TV serials, which portray the most horrendous things. They understand their marital obligation in different way. They think that it is their duty to be oppressed and obey their husband, in-laws, etc. How do you think a change can be brought here?
That's quite tricky for me, because for me the answer lies in the remote and I just switch it off, or I switch channels. But it's going to take a lot more than just kind of talking about it, that this is how the serials are, oh, this is how it is. Like you said, it's not just women, it's also men. I had my older daughter writing in the other day saying that so-and-so is a creep, talking about a guy. So we said, come on now, kids don't start that early and they're all good. It's only later on in life. She said, yes, kids don't get bad early, but young men my age do, is what she said, right? What this guy was doing was, he would see, I mean, they are in campus, girls getting drunk, and then he would try and sort of get close and all sorts of stuff. So she says creepy, she writes. So it's not just for women, it's also men. It's a learned behavior is what I feel. So unless we break the shackles of what we learn from either the home or society, sometimes like it's over the top. I mean, I'm sure everybody has the basic intelligence to know that this is not the way it is. So there are many, many women who break those shackles.
So, a part of moving on process is giving a chance to another marriage, perhaps a healthy relationship. There are challenges that domestic violence survivors faces while remarrying. If you can shed some light on this, so how does one deal with it and move forward in life?
Okay, so that is a very, very good question, Gargi. Thank you for asking that. A lot of people come up to me and say that, oh, you've had a great life. For you, it has been very easy. You're lucky. Your husband cooks, your husband does this, your husband does that. He's very supportive and blah, blah, blah. I mean, hey, he likes to do what he likes to do. I like to do what I like to do. But I always felt, and I've always said this, that marriage is not the be all and end all, Yes, at a certain point in time, we all look for companionship. But do you want to make a compromise and look for companionship, rather than, live your life the way you want to? So if you actively go and in search of that, you've finished with, you've sort of done with one marriage, you're like sort of on the rebound. When you find somebody, you're more likely to go wrong. That has been my experience, and I have gone through that. So my thing was, I never wanted to get married after that. In fact, I remember telling my husband, I said that let's live together. And if you find somebody else, you can go get married to her. Theek hai, I'll find you a nice girl, you can get married to her. It's just, that's who I am. And I cannot say this about anybody else, but for myself, it was like, unless I find the right person, if I'm looking, I wasn't. I just knew this, that I was too lonely because I was an only child. I remember because of my parents' fights, I still remember hiding under the bed, stuff like that. I didn't want to do that. I wanted somebody I could talk to on a regular basis. I came home and both my parents being in the army, I was like 8:30 to bed. And so I've never had those giggles in the night. I've never had those lovely times. I just wanted that with somebody with whom I could talk, if I had my day, a good day, bad day, gossip, whatever, I wanted that. That's all I wanted. I just, touch wood, got lucky. And I feel that that is something that, especially women, not so much men, especially women should be a lot more patient. And it becomes more difficult when you have a child, because you have to look at the child's welfare as well, right? And then as you grow older, what happens is you are set in your ways. You have a certain way of living your life. So when you find somebody, just for the sake of finding somebody, when you find somebody, then that is an impediment, and that is the road to disaster.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I would like to call VT Venkatesh sir to come and join us.
Hello, Muthu.
Hi, VT.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure.
Oh.
One of the things which we have been talking in this particular program has been that we look from a very positive. This is in celebration of Women's Day that we have this program of 8 days. While we talk in terms of women's, more particularly the issues and challenges which women face when in domestic violence, is some subject which we always wanted to discuss about. In fact, Reach Lawyer Source, we came with first an idea of it a year ago, February 2021. And we never expected the kind of responses. It was a thing which I'd like to share, that we got responses from across the continents, from Argentina to Norway to Australia, to name the Asian countries, the African countries. I was taken aback that the issue, one of the journalists from Sardinia, she wrote to us and said, irrespective of the development of a society, so long as the religion and the patriarchy exists, domestic violence is a factor we have to always live with. And we did studies on that for almost 1 year and found that every third woman in this world has faced one or other form of domestic violence in her life. It's half the population of this world. And if we were to say that a third of them have faced one or other form of domestic violence, we can imagine the magnitude of this violence. Therefore, the issue was something which we wanted to one thing which we wanted to tick on and see that how women get their opportunity, women get to hear about them. In fact, in lots of experiments which we did in all these years, we found that what women, sorry for a call which is coming in, women always look for someone to listen to. In fact, many a time we have come across, why did you not take a call at the first instance? They told me that there was none who could hear me out. So this was some challenge which we found. Then we found that many of them needed some counseling. Counseling in this country is an expensive affair. There are few and far in between the counselors are. And second challenge was that. Third was the kind of quality legal advice, what she needed, rather than the whole set of legal rights that she has, which one is necessary for her, which she should pursue. The quality of legal advice is not available. I think that was the reason which made us go through this process to create this space. So the Reach Lawyer is a community of lawyers, activists, journalists, academics, students, and concerned who will listen to these stories, who are willing to give, we are willing to give that kind of a quality legal advice, try to see which is the best possible way, which are the ways she can seek redressal or she can look at. In fact, this whole process was a journey of a woman in domestic violence, from being a victim to a survivor and beyond. In fact, your presentation was one of an experience that, yes, a victim to a survivor and beyond. I think that makes this event such an important one in the series of talks that we have had. And this is very important for women to look into, that yes, they need to speak up. Yes, they need to think. Yes, they need to express themselves, find people to express themselves, see that one person who is going to willing to listen to their situation and try to understand the situation. And that's what we experienced. One experiment which we did was for the government workers. One of the union leaders of the government workers told me that women don't want to leave the marriages, especially among government workers, the working class communities. But certainly they want to have a negotiating tool with the husband. I think that's something which is required. So where do they get that? So we started talking to them, and in fact, we started listening to them. Many of them said that by expressing oneself and talking, engaging with someone else, they were more confident to handle their situation. In fact, this is something has been learning for us. So we are trying to put these kind of experience that at Reach Lawyer we had, with almost a number of decades of experience in litigation on women's rights concern. We'd like to utilize that, see that, create a platform for women so that they can come and find their answers, find their questions, make their questions to us. Just all that they need to do is that mail us at askreachlawyer@gmail.com. We'll go through the same. The number of lawyers in India and in Karnataka and across who are willing to help us participate in this program and try to advise. I think that's the purpose of this initiative that we are doing. So as a part of this, this was one event, 8 days program where we found one of the finest speakers who are still on, the kind of speakers who have had Ann Thomas, the panel discussion that we had, and then Sheila Ramaswamy, and presently your program. It gives us so much of information to people who are in domestic violence, who are looking at ways that they can, so how they can address their issues themselves and way forward. I think that's something which is a need. So I thank you first.
No, I want to just interrupt you here when you said about lawyers, panel of lawyers. I still remember I hadn't yet joined the HRLN or ICHR, so I didn't know anything about the law. I just knew this much, that there was a section, I think it was 48A or 498A, I can't remember what it was, which would have given me reprieve. Can you believe it? My lawyer actually said it's a very long drawn out process. Don't go for it. I said I would want to, but constantly said no. So this is again where my anger stems from there. That, there is, even if somebody wants to fight it, or if they say that you'll have to, it's always, when I felt a victim, like I won't say I'm even a survivor. I've just done what I have to do in life, what experience I have had to experience. I've experienced it. I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for all these experiences simply because it made me who I am. And today I'm talking to young students and you're saying it's good because you and I are friends and you've spoken so much. We've spoken so much. But I always feel that lawyers never listen to women, and they come with their own judgment about what she is saying to them, especially when it is women. I'm sorry to say, but I have been many a time disappointed with how they go about it. So if there is 498A, use it. Let's see where the obstacles are. Where are the stumbling blocks? Let's go forward from there. That is something I think women don't get it, because if they ever were to, supposing I were to come and speak to BT Venkatesh, when I go back home, if my husband got to know about it, I would get beaten up. And BT doesn't have a place for me, right? So I always have a problem with that when it comes to our judicial system, especially there are other things that I can go on about disability, about, what my battles were when it came to my own transplant. But for me, it is like, it's never about helping people. I feel that, especially women, everybody judges them at every single point. You've got to develop a thick skin is what I feel, which is tough.
This entire exercise at Reach Lawyer Soch is driven towards being non-judgmental first. 2, enabling people to make informed choices. I think that's the focus that we have, because that informed choices make life much better. In fact, reduces the pain, able to understand things better and to move forward. I think one of the major issues which we work at Reach Lawyer is that how one need to move forward. That's why the whole journey has been from victim to survivor and beyond. How are we to take that journey? How are we to help that journey possible? I think that's the very purpose of Reach Lawyer Soch program. And thankfully, we have one of the finest supports across India as of now. A number of lawyers, where nearly 250 lawyers have enrolled to be part of this kind of an activity across India. And in Karnataka alone, we have some close to 100 lawyers in Karnataka across the state who are willing to provide that kind of support and advice to people. And this is some exercise which we intend to do. We want to see that women in distress, women who are in need of sound legal advice, they can write to us so that we can create that kind of a space. We have done that good amount of work. We have a great number of bag of successful stories at Reach Lawyer. And we would like to see that how we share that to more and more people, how we share this kind of expertise that we have, how we share that number of experts with whom we associate, they also contribute to it. And that's the whole purpose. So therefore, we always keep telling the people who come to our programs, if you have an issue, if you're seeking for an advice, you just mail us at askreachlawyer@gmail.com. And just one simple mail ID. You can talk to us. We will listen to you. We would like to see what's the best advice which is possible. If we don't know, we'll try to find other experts who are going to help you out in this process. I think this kind of a journey, which is essential at this point of time, more particularly women who are facing such amount of challenges. So thank you very much. It has been such a pleasure that you are.
Thank you. And I'm always there for you anytime anybody wants to speak to me. If you find somebody who would help, who will get some help, I will be there for you. Thank you, BT.
Yeah. Anyone who has any questions, Gargi, you can announce any questions from the audience. You can take the audience questions too. So let's do that.
No, there is no more questions from the audience, but can everyone just switch on their videos for a while? I would like to take a group picture, please.
I have no question, but this is Kanmani Kavita here.
Hi, Kavita.
Hi. I want to tell it's been again such a pleasure listening to you, Muthu. And what a way to empower women is what I would say. Because, yeah, domestic violence is one thing. And of late, gaslighting is something that has been so rampant. And, and I see women are putting up with it. In the name of wanting to, say that I have a girl, I don't want to spoil her life. I have a son, I don't want to spoil his life. And I don't know why women have to go through it and want to put up with it. You see, in the name of wanting to give the children a good life, they don't understand that the kids are watching and this is what they will do in future. Putting up with nonsense.
Yeah.
Or probably, it's going to be, they're going to be doing it to somebody else. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a beautiful session. I hope, it reaches the others, so that people understand that.
Thank you, Kavita. Actually,
Yeah.
you are in the best position. I must say, Kavita is a principal of a school, and she's been an amazing, amazing friend, and she's an amazing teacher, educator. And I think, Kavita, you are actually at the best position because you have young children under you who the respect starts right there in school. Like when it came to, for example, dressing, after many years, my daughter says, Mama, they're talking about hijab, they're talking about this, that, and the other. They want us to wear bloomer under our skirt, and then they lift up our skirts to see whether we are wearing bloomers.
How sad.
This is also happening in school. So you are in the best position to change the society. I feel that about you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Kavita. What a support.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone. By this,
if everyone could turn on the videos, it'll be helpful so that I can take a screenshot.
Yeah, I want to see you also, Nitin.
Yes.
Hi.
Yeah, done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. Bye to the entire team.
Bye.